Since the beginning of time, people have always looked for better ways to get from one place to another. Over time, advances in technology have allowed people to travel faster, farther, and more efficiently than many felt would ever be possible. From the invention of the wheel to the development of the electric car, land transportation has constantly improved, and innovation still continues today. The first form of transportation was, of course, Shank's pony, better known as the human foot. However, over time, people eventually learned how to utilize animals for transport. Donkeys and horses were most likely domesticated between 4000 and 3000 BC, and camels were domesticated slightly later, between 3000 and 2000 BC. Next came the wheel, which was invented in about 3500 BC with the main purpose to manufacture pottery. This led to the development of the wheel as a means of transportation, as the first carts were created with an axis and separately rotating wheels. At first, wheels were made of solid pieces of wood lashed together to form a circle, but after 2000 BC, they were made with wooden spokes. During the late 16th century and early 17th century, goods were often transported by pack horses and oxen. Covered wagons were also used to carry goods and sometimes passengers. Transport and communications also improved in the 17th century, such as the royal posts being used to carry the king's correspondence. However, in 1635, to raise money, Charles I allowed members of the public to pay his messengers to carry letters. This was the start of the first royal mail. From the middle of the 17th century, stagecoaches ran regularly between major towns. However, they were expensive and very uncomfortable due to the lack of a suspension system on bumpy roads. There was also the danger of highwaymen, who were bandits that waited along the ditches of the roads for passing travelers. This created a need for increased highway patrol through the use of turnpikes. During the 18th century, groups of wealthy men formed turnpike trusts. Acts of Parliament gave them the right to improve and maintain certain roads, yet this meant that travelers had to pay tolls to use them. The first turnpikes were created as early as 1663, but they became standardized in the 18th century. Towards the end of the century, steam power was invented, which led to the industrialization of locomotives and later trains. In the mid-19th century, transport was revolutionized by railways. They made travel much faster, and they also decreased the danger of highwaymen. The first underground railway in Britain was built in London in 1863, and steam locomotives continued to pull the carriages until the late 1800s. On June 4, 1896, in a tiny workshop behind his home on 58 Bagley Avenue, Henry Ford put the finishing touches on his gasoline-powered motor car. After more than 2 years of experimentation, he had completed his first automobile. Bicycles also emerged during the 19th century, with the first bicycle being credited to Baron Karl Drais in Germany in 1818. Odd in nature, the dandy horse, as it was called, had no pedals because the rider pushed along the ground as if walking or running. By the 1960s, however, it had evolved into the more modern style of a chain and pedal system, which is still used today. Although the first cars appeared at the end of the 19th century after the First World War, they became cheaper and more common in the 1900s. In 1940, only about 1 in 10 families in Britain owned a car. However, they increased in number after World War II, so that by 1959, 32% of households owned a car. By the 1970s, the majority of families owned at least one vehicle. Public transportation, such as buses and taxis, were becoming more common in the cities, and motorcycles were also making a strong appearance by the 1980s and 90s. Lastly, new highway systems and designs were introduced, such as traffic circles and big multi-lane interstates. Today in the 21st century, we see a new movement to increase electric and hybrid vehicle production, as well as sufficient infrastructure for these types of vehicles. The recent development of the Global Positioning System has also played a major role in the development of autonomous cars, such as the Google Self-Driving Car project. In a day and age where segways are used by campus police and where you can go online and order a hoverboard, future methods of transportation will continue to become increasingly more efficient and creative.